So 1 year ago, Donald Trump became the 45th president of the United States, something that was completely unexpected. Donald Trump beat the Clinton machine in what many have now dubbed the biggest U.S. upset in electoral history. Here's what Donald Trump and his vice president-elect Mike Pence had to say to the American people on election night.
That while the campaign is over, our work on this movement is now really just beginning. We're going to get to work immediately for the American people. And we're going to be doing a job that hopefully you will be so proud of your president. You'll be so proud.
Just days and even hours before the American public went to the polls, every pundit, every media outlet in the world fully expected that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton would be the next president of the United States. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out so well for her. And then she left a room full of very upset supporters, quite angry.
Everybody should head home. You should get some sleep. We'll have more to say tomorrow.
So 1 year since becoming POTUS 45, Donald Trump remains to be the most controversial and confounding political figure all around the world. After the election, media outlets everywhere sent their reporters into the heartland to try to figure out what exactly happened on election night. How did someone who has been called boorish, who has been called misogynist, who has been called racist and sexist actually become the leader of the free world? Well, the challenges that the president continues to face are many of his own making at this point, notably his tweets, which never seem to stop. Also, he has a propensity to call people by nicknames, which aren't necessarily the most friendly. You'll remember, of course, from the election, Marco Rubio, he used to call him Little Marco. Jeb Bush from Florida, you know, he had some interesting commentary about the low-energy Jeb Bush. But then even now, as he's become president, he still keeps giving people a moniker. The big one, however, is, of course, the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un. He calls him Rocket Man. Now, it's one thing to call a U.S. senator by a pejorative name, but it's another to actually call someone who's got a nuclear arsenal at his disposal a nickname. Can be kind of scary and troubling times, but it also just goes to show you this is the type of presidency we can expect under Donald Trump. So the tweets need to stop. That would be helpful to actually have him push his agenda forward, which is actually stalled. One of the things that propelled Donald Trump into the White House was a very populist agenda, draining the swamp, getting the government out of the way of Americans in order for them to allow to live their lives and be prosperous. But has it been all that bad? Close to election night again, many of the pundits said, and then economists even said, you know, the U.S. economy is going to tank. Well, fast forward to 2017, the U.S. unemployment rate is at its lowest at 4.1%. GDP growth is around 3%. And the S&P 500 has performed very well with increases quarter after quarter. So has it been that bad? But the problem the president has right now is that he hasn't been able to drain that so-called swamp, nor has he been able to overturn Obamacare, which was one of his biggest commitments to the American people. He has had another success. He did get a Supreme Court nominee in very short order. He's also done a lot with respect to deregulation. And he's also made that commitment to the Americans that he is going to get better trade deals for them, even if he's been somewhat protectionist on that file. So what do we get to expect from 3 more years of Donald Trump? Well, more protests, more cries of fake news, more and more Antifa protests out there. But will we see this man, who is in the most coveted seat in the world, actually grow into the job and actually be able to pass some of the legislation, which he hasn't thus far been able to do without executive orders? Like getting renditions done of that infamous border wall he campaigned on. Remember that 1,900 miles of wall he wanted to put up between U.S. and Mexico, which Mexico was going to pay for? And finally, that big one hanging over the neck of the entire Trump administration is the Russia scandal. Since the day Donald Trump was elected, it had been suggested that Russia hacked the election to help him and defeat Hillary Clinton. Of course, now we've seen some arrests been made, and there have been some indictments put forward, all at the feet of people who are very close to Donald Trump. Though I don't believe it's going to ultimately reach to the level of the Oval Office, this is still one narrative that the White House has allowed to continue and casts a pall upon his presidency.